age fades, Sensay lights the path we've made. From stories untold to wisdom profound, we'll keep your voice where it's always found. The spark of genius, the heart of thought, in every step, the battles we fought. Preserve, extend, and innovate, for the future is ours to create. Sensay rise through the ages and time. Knowledge immortal, voices that climb. From the past to the future, we pave the way. Wisdom eternal, this is Sensay. AI built, a human soul, a legacy carved to make us whole. Through every moment we hold the light, guiding the way both day and night. Imagine a world where minds unite, ideas soar and dreams take flight. Together we stand, a force so strong, echoing brilliance where we belong. Sensay rise through the ages and time. Knowledge immortal, voices that climb. From the past to the future, we pave the way. Wisdom eternal, this is Sensay. This is the anthem of innovation, a promise of endless creation.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's community update for Sensay. I am Dan Thomson, the CEO and co-founder at Sensay, and today we have our head of community, as always, Lars, joining us. And welcome, Lars. How are you?
I am great tonight. I'm sitting in a lovely hotel street in the most party part of Makati in Philippines right now. It is beautiful down here, and I'm happy to be here with all of our community as always.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's nice that you actually get to see a lot of the community on your various travels. And thank you for taking the time out of your Friday night to come and be with us today. It's early morning here and on the west coast of Mexico, and so for me it's a bit easier. But I hope to be there a bit later. And joining us also today, we have Rupert is our COO, who's joined us the last couple of months and his first time joining on a community call as well.
Hi guys.
Bit of touch and go there, Ru. Wasn't sure if you were going to make it, but glad you're here.
Well, I just logged in as at 4 o'clock. I thought it was. I wasn't aware I needed to be here earlier, so bang on time.
No, we're the star of the show today, right? So we wait for you.
It's great to have you with us, Rupert.
Oh, I'm very glad to be here. Good to see you guys.
I'm sure everyone is extremely grateful as well to not have me monologue for half an hour. Great. So, would you like to give a quick introduction to yourself for anyone who hasn't had a chance to see your face before?
Sure. Well, look, hey everybody, great to meet you and see the community. I am Rupert. For those who don't know me, I've joined Sensay as COO, although I've been in the back wings of Sensay for some time now. I don't know, like Dan, it's been a couple of years in the wings. Dan and I have actually known each other for almost 20 years, believe it or not.
Horrifying.
Despite the fact we both look so young.
Exactly.
Virile. We've known each other for a very, very long time. And when Dan started Sensay, I was helping on the sidelines, advising the business, and joined properly in January, and been getting myself up to speed with the rest of the business and love it. The one thing I love about Sensay more than anything else than the product is actually the team, and obviously a great extension of that is the community and the support that we get from the community. So very pleased to be here, and thank you. Let's go.
Awesome. Great to have you in today. So today, guys, we're going to go through a shorter sort of background on Sensay for everyone. We're going to give you sort of an explanation of how we're presenting Sensay to potential clients and customers, and also how I actually use my replica myself, and just give everyone a bit of sort of understanding and background in terms of what Sensay is and where it comes from, and why we're really here. We usually touch on this a little bit at the start, but I wanted to go into a bit more detail today. Then we'll go into some really great growth stats we've had recently, as well as a community update, before we talk about what the team's currently working on, what we've done, what we've brought out this week, and what's coming up in the next couple of weeks before we launch into a Q&A session. So for anyone who's joining on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, please feel free to write any comments, any questions you have, and we will answer as many as we can, and all of them. So please do make sure you write those questions, comments, or in our Telegram or Discord communities. We will see them, and we'll be able to answer them live today for you as we go through. Sometimes we get more, sometimes we get less, sometimes we have more time, and so sometimes we may not get to all the questions, but if we can, we'll get to as many as we can during this call. So just to get started, really, I'd like to sort of recap on the Sensay story, as to the reason that we're here, really. So the Sensay story. Sensay began with a deep sort of personal realization, when I was probably about 15 years ago now. So in my late teens, I actually smashed my head in extremely hard on the bottom of a swimming pool, which actually concussed me so badly that I lost my memory for about 48 hours. And this really sort of awakened something in me, a few things actually, in terms of understanding how fragile our memory can be, and how that even the deepest knowledge that we have, like who we are and the people that we know the most around us, can be lost. I was sat there staring at my best friend, not being able to recall his name, not being able to remember where we were, not being able to just pull out any information, like having a word on the tip of your tongue and just not quite being there. And it was terrifying. So for me, that really, made me realize that fundamentally all we are is the stories we have, the knowledge we have, the things we have around, the understandings we have, the experiences we have, and how fleeting that can be, and it can be gone in an instant, and that's extremely sad. So how what does that mean for us? And for me, that meant making as many stories and memories as I could, and sharing them with as many as I could, and just becoming just building this I guess wealth of experience and stories, and along the way it actually even made me contemplate like how those stories, no matter how big they become, reflect in the universe, and in a universe where it's so big, and we really just are so small and so fleeting on this earth. Like, how can we really find any kind of meaning there? And luckily, I'd studied a bit of philosophy at the time, and that sort of background in philosophy enabled me to really think about this. And I started making some notes on this idea, and started really exploring the idea of the sort of existentialism, the meaning of life. Like, what's my sort of purpose in a world which can end in an instant, where after a couple of generations we are forgotten? And those notes, those sort of thoughts and musings, really led me to create a book, my first book, which is called Immortality in the Digital Age, which you can find on Amazon. Not that I'm plugging my book today. And this was more of like a personal musing around the basically my search for sort of meaning in this universe. And what it actually ended up coming to was finding value in the age that we live in, this golden age of data, this ability that we have to have photos and videos that last longer than we do, that we can actually get to know someone better because of that. These different digital footprints that we have that persist from us that otherwise previous generations didn't have access to. And so with that, basically, it enabled me to realize that we can actually have a more advanced version of those footprints when you combine them into these stories that we can write down. And by having those stories written down and combined with sufficiently advanced AI, we can actually create these digital personas, these replicas that can actually persist as us and actually exist after us. And this is 6-7 years ago now, and writing these books out before generative AI was really a big thing. AI was around and the concept there, but a lot of it was really science fiction. And so even then, writing these books out about this idea of mind uploading, of digital immortality, of consciousness transfer was still, a really early field in terms of exploration and science. But as the technology advanced, so did our possibilities. And with the explosion of AI into the public domain, I guess just over 2 years ago now. So I think it was late 2022 when ChatGPT really hit the mainstream media, and realizing that AI had advanced at a rate that was much faster than anyone had expected. It was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead of what anyone had expected. And so that was when, and I remember I was in I was in Croatia at the time, and I was having a nice week off and from my job in an insurance protocol, and I basically got on the phone with Shane and said, you've read my book, I've got this idea, and if we don't do it, someone else will, and AI is at the point where we can actually do this. And somehow he convinced me to leave my, very good job, doing not too much, and moving on to actually, build this out with him, with Marco as well, and that's how the sort of early stages of Sensay came to be. It's it was and then we basically started putting this together in the very bare bones. We put a very small team together. We started building out the earliest version of Sensay, which was a Gordon Ramsay chatbot over WhatsApp, and it was a bit of fun. We didn't really know which way to go at that point, but it was exploring the idea of recreating people using AI, and it was it was fun. And so it was great in those early days. Obviously it was stressful because we're bootstrapping, we're trying to figure out how to do it, how to actually put this whole thing together. And I guess that's an entirely different story of how to actually start the business and fund everything. But the background of the story really comes from that sort of personal connection. The word Sensay itself comes actually not from this concept of samurais and mastery and teachers and masters. It actually comes from the original translation of it, which is the one who came before, which I think is really nice, especially in that context of having people who that you're replicating as a way of persisting through different generations. And so we set out in a way, and then we explored different verticals, all the different possibilities, everything. We had a big board of all the possibilities of what we could actually do to create, and all the different verticals that we had options for to create this. Everything from AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends, through to gaming, through to city guides, through to personal assistants, second selves, all the way to matchmaking, job hunting, gaming. Education was a huge one, healthcare, AI doctors, AI lawyers, all of these different applications that we could actually, apply this technology to were there. So it's so broad, and I think we've been very public about the struggle of trying to stay focused on that for quite some time. But we narrowed it down to education and healthcare at the time, and we started exploring those. Along the way, we realized that those fields were probably better to come a bit later in terms of what we're building, and we moved over to a focus on B2B elements. At the same time, we met Roman, and Roman's got a huge amount of experience in Web3, and we realized that actually we could add a lot of blockchain elements into what we do, and also do our fundraising via a crypto token sale. And so that's how the Sensay token came to pass. But even the funny thing is, even with the the concept of creating these digital replicas from the books from years ago. When you actually read in the books, you'll see that there is a section about how when you can create a digital replica of anyone, you can, there can be thousands or millions of replicas of that person. So how do you find one that is actually authorized and verified to be that person, to act as that person, to persist as the authentic person? And especially in an age where voice can be replicated, image can be replicated, everything can be replicated, and even style and everything, how do you authorize, that sort of replica to be verified that that is the right person? And this is way before DeFi, and way before the entire sort of, Web3 ecosystem came around. And even then, the theory was you could have on blockchain some kind of verification or authentication of activity, and also proof of knowledge and proof of ownership as well. So you could have a verified person that has a verified likeness to a replica, and therefore they own that, and then any action it does could be on chain, and that could be proven to be verified and authorized by them. And this is particularly relevant now. I mean, even the last couple of days, there's been an incredibly intelligent Telegram scam going around where I think it's with AI, it could be people, but either way, it's incredible. They're copying people's writing styles and even some of their contacts and knowledge, and it's a really clever approach to be able to try and scam people out of money. And it's seen it a couple of times in the last week. So please, for everyone who is out there especially on Telegram, Discord, please be careful, and please do verify anyone that you interact with, just to be safe. But today, Sensay's AI-powered wisdom engine is turning this vision into a reality. So we're building this personality engine, this way of collecting all these data, this understanding of the subjectivity of identity, understanding that you interact with different people in different ways. You interact with your partner one way, you interact with your kids a different way, maybe you interact with your parents a complete different way. And that's probably very different to how you interact with your best friends after a few drinks. At the same time, we also interact on different platforms in different ways. Everything from email, where we would write out, probably a bit more formal, to maybe Twitter, where you might be, a bit more harsh with people, and then maybe Instagram, where you put your best self forward. Each of these are subjective cases for our own identity. Each of these are places where people identify you as you because you are posting there on your account in a certain way. If, I don't know, Kanye West took over my Instagram account, he would probably post it in a completely different way. And people who know me would probably be able to spot that it's slightly different. So we have a subjective identity depending on the person we're speaking to and also the platform we're speaking on. So our wisdom engine combines all of that and turns this idea of replicating an individual into a reality. It creates lifelike digital replicas that store knowledge, apply expertise, and evolve over time. So there's a constant learning and improvement mechanism. They basically ensure that these valuable insights and knowledge are never lost again. So we're really starting to get towards that dream of not actually having to lose any of this knowledge. This right now is being applied to certain businesses, because in the same way that if someone loses their knowledge in real life and in their day-to-day life, you can also lose it in a particular job. So if you are, let's say, working in a company for 5, 10, 15 years, even just a couple of years, even 1 year, 2 years, there's a huge amount of knowledge that any key person has at that company. And if you're a key person working at any kind of organization, because the key people in any organization, big and small, those maybe 10% of the employees or the team who are key people in every team really hold about 80% of the corporate knowledge and understanding of that organization. And so when they leave the company, when they retire, or even just when they're on holiday or they're just asleep, there's a huge knowledge loss with them not being available to share that knowledge. And imagine a world where that isn't really a case. Imagine a world where CEOs of huge companies can interact with all of their employees really on a very personal basis, where clients or customers, where candidates for jobs can get to know the company, get to know the senior team before actually having to meet them, as a way of interactive and creating that engagement, like pre-engagement before actually having to work there. It becomes a really, really powerful tool for any company of any size to have these replicas of key people, of experts, to ensure that that knowledge for onboarding, new people, onboarding these, the new sort of Gen Z employees, the new Gen Z team coming through, as a way of them having an interactive experience from day one with senior team. I mean, even ourselves, we are a relatively small company, but even sometimes, when I find myself, when we have meetings with some of the new starters, and I find myself realizing that I don't get enough time to really speak to some of the team. So, where my replica becomes really handy is the fact that lots of people, before they have a chance to, before they speak to me, really, they had a chance to speak to my replica, to ask some questions. And then it's really funny because they come to me having known a little bit about me and having some feedback and already understanding what we're trying to build, having an understanding of what Sensay is. And that becomes super powerful because it's an extension of me. It makes me that much more productive. It probably accounts for 20-25% more productivity. I now have it drafting my emails. I have it, really helping me day to day to, boost who I am and what I can be. And that works great for, sales and customer services, for community engagement. For anyone who's in our community, they'll see Danbot answering the questions all the time. And it's fantastic because it has all the live information about Sensay. It's up to date. It's constantly being, improved and trained. I have a weekly training slot with Danbot to improve it and make sure it knows everything I've been up to. So it's fantastic, really. Sensay really guarantees that these, the lessons and experiences, this knowledge endure. Sensay basically transforms this knowledge into scalable, sustainable wisdom, that's available 24/7 in any language. This tool is going to just change the way that organizations are built, the way that onboarding's done, the way that training's done, the way that handovers are done. If you even think about any company where you've had to do a handover and having that process of having to put everything together super quick at the last minute, and you don't want to do it as a handover, and the people coming in just have no way of really interacting with the information. It becomes a real challenge for a lot of organizations, and there's a huge cost to all of that. And with Sensay, we can really help to alleviate a lot of that. So sorry for the, the slightly overly long monologue there, but also, I'd like to really get into how I actually use my replica day to day now. And there's some really, really nice ways. So for instance, and we get a lot of the times we get the question of, why can't this be done with ChatGPT or Claude? And the reality is, it's that personalization. It's taking the aspects of you that make you you and make you unique. And that comes from these different data inputs. It comes from the different training that you put into it, which is something that Claude or ChatGPT or any of the other big LLMs and the generalized LLMs, which are fantastic, but they don't have this. They don't have the personalization to you. So by adding that personalization layer in and really getting to know yourself as well. So even going through our Q&A as a real eye-opener of basically self-exploration as to who you are as a person. And I find something that's really powerful as well. But having the ability to, have this replica there so for me, I use it for interacting with on a personal level, for just essentially some questions, some feedback sometimes. But the big separator from the big generalized LLMs and us is that personalization layer. For example, if I'm in Mexico City and I would like to go and have a nice Italian restaurant for a dinner with my girlfriend, what I can do, if I went to ChatGPT or I went to Claude, I said, can you find me a good nice Italian restaurant in, I don't know, in Polanco or Roma Norte, it would find me probably 5, 10, 20 very, very good Italian restaurants. The difference with having this personalized replica do the same search for you, and then later on we'll actually be able to book it for you and do all these kind of actions for you as well. The difference really comes in the personalization, because when someone says they want to go for an Italian, someone could mean like, oh, I want to go for some super high-end, fancy Italian, or someone could mean they just want to go for a cheap, quick pizza. Someone might say they want to do a takeaway or a delivery. Having those personalized elements in there basically means that your replica becomes a personalized LLM for you that is trained on your data and information to help you as an individual. Externally, it's also become super useful because it means that my knowledge, that knowledge, I used to run restaurants and bars, so that knowledge of restaurants, bars, cocktails, and preferences when it comes to those kind of things are also shared in my replica. So that means that if someone knows that I used to work in bars and restaurants, which a couple of the developers know this, and they actually use my replica quite a lot for restaurant recommendations rather than kind of phoning me up, which some of my friends still do after years and years of not working in restaurants and bars. They will actually use my replica to help them choose items on a menu, to help them choose a restaurant, because they know that the recommendations that I would give, are actually, it has my thought process, it has my way of choosing a particular restaurant. And that becomes really, above and beyond a Google search or a random search through ChatGPT or Claude. So that's that personalization that really makes us stand apart from that. I also use it for our community management. We use it for outreach, for investors, for partnerships, for community. We use it for engagement, and also as just almost like an information tool. And it becomes really useful for that. So it's an incredible tool for having an extension of me that if I spend half my day on calls and the other half of my day firefighting and running around planning out what we're doing at Sensay and making sure that the team is as enabled as possible. But that means that I don't spend as much time in the community as I would like to. And so for me, it's just really incredible tool to be able to share myself and my vision and my knowledge and the company information in the community in a way that I wouldn't be able to myself. So that's basically where Sensay came from, what we've been building, and how we ended up to where we are, and also what I use my replica for. And I'm sure everyone is plenty fed up with me talking at them for 20 minutes. So we're going to bring Lars back up for a community update, and so yeah, hopefully that didn't put everyone to sleep.
Don't worry, I had a good nap while you were talking, Stan, but I always listen. But yeah, your replica is amazing. We even used it actually to haggle while we were down in Morocco. We actually used his replica in this works. We did film a little bit, so we will teach you a little bit, show you how we actually used it in the real life out there. So what's going on with the community right now is that you see that phase 2 of the Kazam has actually started. It's a completely new way of actually doing it, because now to have the special quest, you have to either have a starter package or a professional package to be able to get the real special ones. The reason why we have these is actually because we want your input. We want feedback on the functionality of the different things, because it helps us develop everything. All the feedback that you give from every single quest that you do within the Sensay community actually goes forward directly into our development team, also goes to Dan, to Rupert, to everybody in the team. That's why there's more detail you can go actually brings us a lot of input. That is mostly what I have for what is the community. Now we have Rupert with us today as well. And the lovely thing about Rupert is that he joined us, so I'm looking forward to hear his story and his life and entry into Sensay.
But probably not as much detail. Maybe.
Go monologuing like Dan. Rupert, your microphone is off.
Ah, there we go. It totally ruined the whole stream. And Dan, your typing is quite loud on the mic. Just
Oh, really? The mic's here. That's strange. Okay.
I don't know why it picks up. Anyway, so anybody who was at the top of the stream saw me come in, and I gave a little bit of background in terms of I've only been here for a few months, and I am very pleased to be here, and I've known Dan for a long time. But where did I come from? So I've been building businesses for almost as long as I can remember. And I started out back at school, like trying to hawk products that I would import from Eastern Europe. So this is a kind of Web 1 era. Very early days of payment infrastructure on the web, and it was totally sketchy. Anyway, I would import these products from Eastern Europe and sell them into school. And then I got into eBay arbitrage. So back then you were able to buy products that were badly labeled and misplaced on eBay because people didn't really understand how to use it. And I would buy it, repackage it, relabel it, take better photos, and literally resell it, the exact same item. And you'd make a easy 100 to 200% margin on every single product. These are the days when it was easier to find more inefficiencies. Anyway, from that, I then went into events, and that's actually where I met Dan in my early days. I was managing and building festivals around Europe. Festivals led me to corporate events, and corporate events led me to Google. And at Google, I was handed Android as their company that they just bought, and told, go and manage the event-based marketing for Europe, Middle East, and Asia, which I did. And we took that business from nothing. At that stage, it was still a beta application, and we took it from 0 to 86% market share in just over 3 years. And so that's where I kind of knew a love of hypergrowth. And the only way you can get into hypergrowth is by being part of startups. And so my career went towards startups. I had a digital agency that I built after that. I then went back to single products following that, and built a wealth tech management platform called Pink in London. And that was fully regulated, but we did start in the crypto world, and this was back in 2016 era. And then not long after that, I reconnected with Dan, and we worked on Amulet, the DeFi insurance protocol built on Solana. And then when we both kind of went our separate ways on that business, Dan went on towards Sensay, and I went on to work with Solana Foundation and a few of my other portfolio companies that I collected along the way. And then that brings us up to date, where I joined with Sensay, and eventually ended up on a community call on a Friday afternoon. So what am I doing here at Sensay? I mean, look, as a early stage business, you get into a very quick loop of doing what you think is right, and then getting caught up on like legacy issues within inside a company. And there comes a point when you've raised your kind of pre-seed round, that you then start to need putting in processes and structures, and actually really focusing on the core product and the product and the problem. And that kind of phase, things start to break, and you need people to just come in and just help. And so my role here, my principal role, is finding product market fit for the business. That's the number one thing it says on the top of my JD. But actually what that means is working with a lot of the senior team members here, and then a lot of the junior members of the team as well, just to make sure that everything is actually working, and putting in processes so that everybody knows who to talk to when things aren't working. You go into a startup with a few people, and then suddenly overnight you got like 50 people, and you need to know how the bottom person speaks to the top person in the organization. And even though you think that, hey, that's an easy thing, like last week we were talking to each other, whatever reason in human psychology, people don't. They get caught up in their own minds, and they feel like they can't talk to the CEO, or they can't talk to the CEO, or whatever it is. Anyway, I'm here to alleviate a lot of those issues and try and make us go forward towards product market fit. And so with that in mind, like over the last 3 months, we put in new processes around how we build and approve marketing efforts, how we build and improve product, where we focus on product, who's looking after and owning that product and leading the charge, how we build the teams internally. And so, like, I think now we're at 50 people officially. It was either 49 or 50 this week, and yeah, we're growing like crazy and trying to implement all these different rules. So I'm here to kind of be a bit of a glue. I'm being a bit of a right hand of Dan, and helping us hit product market fit. I mean, with that, Lars, should I go into some of our growth stats? You've gone off screen, so I don't know if you're still there. Oh, there's Dan.
Yeah, there I am. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not going to attribute these all to you because a lot of these are from over 6 months. But yeah, I mean, by all means, you can rattle off some of these growth stats. I think I should take
the credit for all of these. So that since I've been here, no. So let's go over some of these growth stats because these are actually pretty cool. And look, yeah, everything is a team effort, and actually that team, I want to be very clear, extends way beyond Sensay, the internal crew. It also extends throughout the community as well, because without the community we wouldn't be here. So X followers are up 40,000 plus in just on top of our original base in the past 6 months. We've had a 78% growth in engagement. We've doubled our impressions across the board, and there are about 20,000 new token holders. Is that about
not
right?
Not new, but total. It's up from about 7K 6 months ago. So it's definitely a big improvement.
And 200,000 new registered users on the website. As of today, our LinkedIn blew past 50,000 followers. So that's a big props to Alessandro and Lucas and the rest of the team, certainly on that side. And we've got 86% more clients in our pipeline. So the BD team are absolutely smashing through it.
That is a recent one. That's only over the last 3 months. That's not 6 months. So that's great.
Oh, so that was all me.
Well, you know.
I arrive, I break everything, and then suddenly 86% new clients in the pipeline. No. Believe me, I did literally nothing to do with these numbers. So
set the house on fire, and it attracts more people.
Yeah, exactly. More moths to the flames. There are 6,500 new replicas created in the last 3 months. This is pretty staggering.
That's
and that
huge.
Wasn't just me every day creating replicas. That was I mean, that's nuts, right? How many is that per day that we're hitting now?
I mean, we've got the sort of channel where we see the notifications about new replicas created, and it's just pinging constantly. So it's definitely accelerating, which is just amazing to see. And some of them are better than others. We'll definitely have to say that for sure.
Yeah. Well, no, of course, I mean, you're always going to find that. But you know, one of the things that I wanted to point out about that is that the quality is going way up. Like the most of them now are professional replicas, right?
Yeah, huge amounts of professional ones coming through, and we're seeing some, real incredible business use cases and different ideas, things that we've had. I think we've got like 30, 40, maybe even 50 different ideas of what replicas could be used for. But like we're seeing ones that we just never even thought of, which is crazy. I mean, they exist, right? It's just humanity, but we just never contemplated they'd be used for this. So it's it's actually staggering to see the quantity, the quality, and even just the creativity of some of the ones coming through.
And out of that 6,500, we've got 2,500 which are actively trading as well. So those people going back and making their replica actively better, which is exciting to hear. 4,500 regular active users interacting with their replicas as well. So again, we're not just creating dead bots, which is good to know. Then just on the team here at Sensay, we've been hiring pretty aggressively, mainly on the senior development side of things. But the two core new team members that have come in are our product lead and product owner, Charlie and Alexander, respectively, have come in, and they are already making a huge difference in how that product delivery and how that product specification is all being put together and what is going to be released out over the next few months. So it's really exciting. It's pretty cool.
No, and you're right before. I think it's it's just about 50 people if you include the core team of like full-timers, part-timers. But the wider team, I mean, if we include, the advisors we work with, I think there's
don't include the advisors. The advisors get too much credit as it is. We also had, when was the last community call? We did it just after the last advisor visit, right?
The last demo day, you mean? The community calls are every week, but the big demo day was just after the big meetup.
Good. So yeah, I mean, obviously in that one, anybody who listened to that recognized like how valuable our advisors are to us, not only in kind of creating connections and being a sounding board on a daily basis, but we try and meet up with them once every few months to really dive into some of the bigger thought processes of the business. And it is a hugely valuable resource, certainly for me. I know you find it valuable as well, Dan.
Well, I mean, in a company, especially where we are building something without a roadmap, right? No one's done this before. No one's created digital twins before. So when you're building something that's never been done before, you can trust your gut as much as you want, but it always helps to have some advice from people who have, it can keep you sort of grounded and create a sense of accountability so that you can actually plan towards it. It sets deadlines, it sets targets, it sets times to actually reflect and catch up, and then actually, and very rarely do founders or C-suite teams and startups get the chance to actually sit down and just brainstorm, reflect first of all, but then brainstorm where you're actually going to take yourself in the next 3, 6, 12 months. And so we treat it like that. We do shorter sprints. We don't do 12 months. We do 3 months, 6 months, because it's AI and everything changes, and it's a fast evolving space. And again, we're building something that hasn't been done before. So every lesson is a new lesson. There's no playbook for this. So we are learning as we go, and having that opportunity to reflect and actually feedback off these people with immense experience that we trust from a huge range of different backgrounds is incredibly valuable for me.
Cool. So we also held our first internal hackathon a few weeks back, right?
We did. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So I was actually going to mention that we are doing our next one next week, and that's what was like super exciting. Aside from some of the recent updates, which we'll get onto a second, but one of the big things we're really excited about is definitely our internal hackathons that we do every month for the whole team. And this is a nice little initiative that we actually started last month, really, to have 2 days a month where anyone in the team can build anything, hopefully relevant to Sensay, but could be anything, that they then present to the team. We give out prizes, and we see some incredible creativity. I mean, the last month's one was the first one was, we just had 8 different people
we had
proving out stuff.
The calling bot that would automatically call your date and say you're going to be late, essentially. Which the best thing about internal hackathons is you get all the best ideas from it from the team to throw in here. But
has that already been used on the wife?
It hasn't been used on the wife. So I thought next week we might start building Daddy Bot. And because since I've started working at Sensay, my children have seen me significantly less, and so they get the replica while Sensay gets the real thing.
I think we've got Super Nanny in there somewhere.
Oh, good.
For that reason.
It's a bit more strict.
I've got Kevin pinging me saying that we, today he's proved that you can vibe code with the Sensay API. So that's very exciting for any of the upcoming builders internally and externally.
Nice.
But so. I mean, it's also been a really good week of announcements. So in the last week and a half, we've got our wider roadmap, as people know, as we released about a month to 6 weeks ago. But in the last week alone, and in the next few weeks, we've got loads of different releases coming out. So we're super excited showcase what we've actually been working on and what we've actually managed to achieve over the last like 2-3 months. But in the last couple of weeks, we launched our LLM switcher, which we talked about quite in detail last week. So if anyone missed the call last week, do go back and watch the recording, because that was a big update in terms of how we can actually now choose from everything from Grok to DeepSeek to OpenAI, Claude. You can actually pick which LLM you want to use, and it does create an extra layer of personalization to you, because everyone has a preference on the way it speaks and how it speaks. This week we announced which we've been teasing for a while, the $1 billion feature, and it's available to select few early beta testers, which is our X agent. So this is essentially the idea of being able to train a replica from your Twitter and have it post on your Twitter for you as you, which will become very useful for a lot of people, because obviously it takes that sort of stress out of it, being able to actually post. So really excited to be able to release that and share it with everyone. I've been running it myself, and it works a treat. I feel 100% less stressed not having to watch my Twitter all day long, but still get pinged when I need to. So yeah, very, very, very excited. And then for anyone who's been watching our socials this week, we also kind of quietly, but we announced our bug bounties program. So we've finally managed to put together a formalized version of our bug bounties, which means that anyone can contribute and get rewarded for finding bugs and flaws in the Sensay platform and share them with us for prizes and rewards. So any of those white hat hackers out there who want to contribute a bit more to Sensay, do get involved. The bug bounty program is for you. We probably don't have time for community replica highlights this week, so we'll probably have to save them for next week, even though there were actually quite a few good ones, so we'll save them for next time. We're going to open up to a couple of questions, as many as we have time for, and we'll get to as many as we can. So, Lars, you want to read out the first one?
Yes, as soon as Kevin sends them up to me, as it is, I am actually on the phone today, so I'm waiting for Kevin today. So I have a wish list. Does everyone in the team have a replica? What is the best internal use case? First off, I don't have one, but I know Rupert and Dan does have, and a lot of the team has. So I left it over to you.
Lars, I thought you create. I thought you did create one.
I'm sure you
I
create.
have my personal replica always in the chat.
I guess it would be.
Wow.
Sorry, we're getting spammed on the back end of messages and jokes. I guess the best one is Alessandro. Alessandro is our head of HR, and he has built out his replica, which gets used by the entire team all the time, because it's basically built out with all of the understanding of his job, of his role, of our documentation internally about what the company's policies are around everything from hiring to time off to expenses to pretty much everything, really. So having that as a resource that's available to all the team that they can go to at any point to ask as a quick resource to check up on any of the HR documents, because quite frankly, I mean, no one likes reading HR documents, no one likes reading work manuals or anything else. But if you have a specific question around holiday time, or if you have a specific question about like paydays and stuff like that, having a replica that has that information quickly to hand and can give it to you, then that's been really useful for a lot of the team. So HR bot's been really, really great. Otherwise, I can't be too selfish and say Dan bot every time, but I'm biased.
Dan, you have to remember the most popular bot right now is actually Rupert's. It's not yours.
Rupert.
Anymore.
This is very true. Rupert's bot is actually more popular than my bot, so it's.
Well, it's based on the amount of messages it reads, and it's added into some Discord servers, so it reads more messages than it sends. So that's the sad thing. I think you get asked it. But just on the other parts of that question is, every single person when they join Sensay has to now create their own replica. It doesn't have to be about themselves, which is why Lars, I know, has definitely got replicas, but they aren't necessarily of him. So
they're pure DGEM.
Pure DGEM. But yeah, everybody creates a replica as they join the company. So yeah, everybody has to have one.
So What is some of the most creative and unexpected ways individuals or business have used Sensei replicas at this time?
Oh, I've got this one. I think
Go
it's the wine list. This is the when some of the team members are out at dinner, they spark up Danbot and send them an image of the wine list and get Dan to recommend, because Dan's brain and business is from that area, and it's 99% correct in what you would normally pick.
95, but yeah, it's good enough.
I mean, it's pretty impressive, nonetheless.
The thing is, where it's actually really useful is because it's actually very good and very accurate when it's in English, but when it becomes really useful is actually when it's in a different language, and it still picks something that I would like. So, funny seeing the team use it. But I think maybe the question was more directed about like external business uses, and one of the
I was going to come on to that. Yeah.
One of the, I guess the example with this guy we're working on, who's got he's got a book basically that he wants as a support for anyone reading the book and going through that, and having a replica trained on the book itself as a sales tool, as a sort of engagement tool, as a understanding tool, almost like behind the author type thing. So understanding his motivations for writing, understanding like the intentions behind certain parts of the book. I mean, we're destroying the entire subject of like English literacy literature.
But I think that's a really interesting subject, because so often I've been listening to a podcast or reading a book or reading an article, whatever it is, and gone, but why? Why did he think like that? What? There's a question that comes up, like you want to ask, right? And like normally you'd have to like email that off to somebody, or you'd have to, do something long-winded and just go, forget it. If you've got the replica there, and it's just like straight back, and that's what everybody wants, right? You want immediate feedback on this sort of stuff. So I find that such an engaging and exciting and creative use, outside of us. Of course.
I mean, God forbid you listen to something like a 3-hour podcast by Joe Rogan or whoever, and you think he said something at some point, and you have no idea, and you're going to have to try and like search through it until you find the part. Whereas a replica of something like a podcast or a book would be able to just say, "Oh yeah, this is the chapter, and this is the section you're looking for."
Or even an 8-hour X space sometimes.
Yeah.
So we have the next one covered out from Amanda. How does Sensei balance personalization with user privacy? Does it store long-term memory? And if so, how is it managed?
This is all you, Dan.
Great question. I mean, everything that we have is end-to-end encrypted, and also when you create your replica, you have the option of making it private or making it public. So if you want your replica to be public for whichever use case, you can obviously make it public, and people can ask the questions that it's trained on. And then it comes down to what you're training it on. So if you're training it on, lots of personal information, and someone asks, some of that information, it may bring it out. We do have a filter which eliminates some extra sensitive information for now, until we have a way of compartmentalizing them properly. Because in the future, the idea is to really develop out this concept of memories, facts, and secrets. Separating out the idea that even as humans we have factual information, something like I'm Dan, 35, born in the UK, from memories which are more like stories. They're more embellished. They're more like, that time when I was young, and I remember truanting and taking a day off from school without permission. Those type of stories and those memories they may be based on a fact, but they can be embellished quite a lot. And then secrets are things that you obviously only tell to certain people at certain times. So secrets obviously have different levels and different things. So we don't have that implemented yet. It's something that we are working on. It's one of the more complicated things to actually process. But the concept is there. But in the meantime, what you can do is just have your entire replica private, or just train it on information that you would like. In the meantime, we do take out any information that is too sensitive. In terms of long-term storage, I mean, if you want to delete your replica, it's compliant with GDPR, and so if you need to, then you can also you can delete your replica and all the information anytime. Nothing gets shared with any third parties, and we definitely don't and will never sell the data to anyone, because we want to build this for the right reasons, and that will be something that we will stick to. I think we've got time for 2 more questions.
Well, it's also with the private part of it, is that you can invite people to actually be able to interact with your replica by that email invite.
That's a good point. Yeah. So on the private replica, you can whitelist people that you actually want to have access to it. So, in that sense, it can be kept completely private, and then everything is end-to-end encrypted. No one can see any of the sort of chat history or anything really. So everything is as secure as it can be.
Yeah. Which is quite amazing for a company to actually use that feature. So we had Deathbool, he come in last week as well. So how does Sensay ensure that AI-powered replicas accurately capture an individual's unique expertise and communication style?
I mean, we could never capture your communication style, Lars. One day.
I know it's chaotic.
The idea. Yeah,
I'll take it if you want. This is really a core part of our technology, and where we are pushing further forward and pushing the user experience further forward. So obviously right now, if you created a replica on Sensay, you go through a number of questions, and that's how it starts to train itself really on how you're responding to it, how and some of the details about you and your background. Where we are moving towards is to use AI to dig deeper into you and your style, and learning that stylistic characteristic, because that's really the core IP around Sensay, is that we are that knowledge layer to understand you as a human and to replicate you as a human. Is that fair enough to say, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. So, so obviously AI is at the core of what we do, but it really is taking in that understanding of different platforms, different data sets, different data points, and using what we call our wisdom engine to process all of that data and that understanding into the different outputs and the way your replica is then interacted with. So by capturing that person's sort of experience and knowledge is from data uploads, from message uploads, from document scrapes and website scrapes, social scrapes, that kind of stuff. Communication style is then taken from some of the messages and the writing style on the various platforms. And then we just, then we use AI and our own algorithms and our built-in systems to actually replicate that on the output. It's really fascinating to actually work on and build. It takes a lot of philosophy of identity and philosophy of language to combine with this kind of the science-based and psychology-based information and process that goes into even our own thought processes and actual way of writing and understanding of even the person you're speaking to. And that's actually, one of the other unique things is that the replicas will actually learn from the person they're speaking to as well. And that's actually something we don't talk about a lot anymore, but we used to talk a lot about that we've obviously had too many things to talk about. But yeah, the having that subjectivity of conversation as well, and having that replica have that personal relationship with everyone that it interacts with, so that it remembers the conversation, it remembers the person it's speaking to, and can actually grow with that person is really amazing.
That is quite the insight. And I actually love, because a community member actually wrote me today if he could make a personal replica of me. So I'm actually looking forward to see what comes out of somebody else trying to recreate my personality of that aspect. So we have Film Free coming in here, but why not store knowledge of a whole company instead of one person, and they provide access accordingly?
Great question. So this is this comes up every so often, and it's a really nice question to actually get to answer. So when you just basically pile in all of your documentation and all of your information about your company, what you end up with is essentially something like a company called Glean, which pretty much does that, right? It's an internal search engine for all of your documents and all of your team and information about your company at any point. And they are useful. These generalized, I think Guru and Glean are probably two of the sort of leaders in this space. So what they do is they capture that, that sort of company information. And for what they do it really well. The difference with Sensay and what we're trying to do is understanding that outside of that company information, people are in certain positions in the company because they have certain thought processes, because they have certain preferences, because they have certain ways of working and looking at things. Someone gets hired, like anyone looking at the same data, if they only went by the data, could probably give you the same results in any kind of like senior position. But there's always the reason someone would get hired into any senior position really is their experience, their understanding, their knowledge, which is usually separate to that company information. It's their way of working, it's their processing, it's their personal like sort of approach to something. And that can be either in a thought process or just an experience. If you're looking at something like, let's say a telecom company, and someone's been working on 4G for the past 20 years, but they might be leaving the company and no one new is getting trained on 4G technology, or even how the sort of fiber optic cables are installed for it. Having someone who's had that information, if they're leaving or retiring after their time in the company, having captured that knowledge and experience and understanding of like how these things are done and their own way of working, basically means that you capture a lot more than what those company docs will ever tell you. It captures their own stories, their own experiences, their own basically differences of the reason that they had their job, and after 5, 10, 15 years of working in that position, they'll have specific knowledge of that process that the general documentation wouldn't have, the original user manuals. So, and I think that's the same for pretty much everyone in any job. You can tell them how to do their job from a textbook, but the reality is it's that personal element that really sets individuals apart. You could take 5 people who have the same degree and interview them all for the same job, but you're going to pick someone that's right for the job because of their thought process, their approach to a problem, not because they are the same degree as everyone else. And so that is that personalization that really sets us apart, and that sort of personal knowledge and that personal experience and stories about that role that actually has value. I mean, this is why we employ people to begin with, because knowledge is a scarce resource, and typically companies are very, very bad at managing to capture it. And so that's where we hope to help.
Yeah, and especially in Sensay, we all are different. We all came into Sensay with different knowledge, different backgrounds, which actually makes a great point as well. So I do know that
great questions today.
Yeah, there was actually
really
quite deep questions as well.
Yeah.
So, and Rupert, I want to say thank you for joining us today, because I know we are about that time of night that the hour is up. And
we're hitting kid bedtime, so I'm definitely going to make a move. But thank you for having me, and look, I will be back on these at some point, I'm sure.
Oh, I will pull you back here, because the chemistry between you and Dan, like a fine wine.
This is why we make such a great pair. Talking of fine wines, this guy, I think is that guy? Have I pointed the right way?
Yeah, it's the right direction.
This guy has called me to go and do some stupid marathon where we go to wineries around France. 21 wineries over what, 21 miles? And or something like that.
It's a full marathon. It's, what is it, 26 miles, 23 vineyards, 26 miles of running. The Marathon du Médoc in September. If anyone else is going to be in France and fancies a marathon with the Sensay team, we'll be there.
If it's running, I'll say the first one.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for having me this afternoon. It's been great. I look forward to be back on the next community call.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. Good night.
Are you ready for your digital twin? Let's go back.
It's rewind time.
The birth of communication, The wonder of hearing a voice from miles away.
Hello. Just a minute, please.
Then, the IT revolution, connecting us not just by voice, but by data.
The world is at your fingertips.
The mobile revolution. We ventured into the world connected like never before. The smartphone era. More connected than ever, closer than ever, which all became a bit overwhelming. Too much information. Too many demands. Imagine if you had a helping hand. You, hundreds of you, teaching, scheduling, engaging, buying, selling, your digital AI replica. Helping you focus on what really matters. It's your revolution.